Hey, good morning, folks. So today I just got a comment on one of my videos about memory a friend of mine had way back when, and his name was Juan. And he was reminded about a potato silencer, which is a whole story about this potato silencer. But I figure, in order to talk about the potato silencer and all that, I got to give you a bit of background about Juan. And I've already talked to you about Juan in some other videos. The one with the branch with the knob on it. I worked at the Riverside Hotel, and he was a night clerk, and I eventually became a night clerk. I think he left and I took his position, but I definitely have memories of us working together at the same time, so he must have been around for a while. I think I worked the evening shift at some point. Maybe he took over after the evening shift, something like that. But I do remember a couple of incidences from the beginning. There was a chair, and I would sit in this chair all the time, and I would just pick at it. I'd just pick on the side here, and I would eventually sort of managed to get a hole in there, just picking at the material. It was some type of vinyl coated material, and I ripped away at the vinyl, and eventually I managed to pick away and get a hole in there, and I got the hole bigger and bigger, and there was quite a hole in there. I don't know why I'm proud of that, but I do know that it irritated the heck out of Juan. And at one point there was a situation going on. I don't remember all the details, my memory being what it is, but he definitely was trying to angle me in some way. He mentions the hole, that's right, out to other people, and I had to prove it was there, and I went down, say, yes, it's right here, and I put my finger into the little hole there, and that sounds rather odd, but anyways, and he had put a needle inside that hole, and I jabbed my finger with that needle, and he explodes into a yes, negative reinforcement. You'll definitely stop playing with that hole now. Anyway, so that was a funny memory from the past. Then I think I've talked about another video where I talked about Juan, because I went to visit him to see the movie Popeye, and I had a car accident in his parking lot, and that in itself made another video, not a whole entire other story, and that was just ridiculous. Don't know if it's not him, it's me. I seem to carry ridiculousness along with me no matter where I go. I remember one time at the Riverside Hotel, he was working shift, and I knew that, and I lived on the other side of the Ottawa River. Not sure, but I was a few blocks away, not too far away, and I had to drive down into Vanier, which is where the hotel was, and I was at home, and I might have been smoking a little bit, I'll admit it, and I was foraging around in the basement. In that basement, it was a rental house, and there's always stuff in this basement from all sorts of tenants, and I found this wig, an old tattered wig, not in great shape or anything like that, but it had these long hair locks and whatnot, and I put it on. I put on some overalls of some sort, the ones that go up here and they have a strap that come around. I don't think I put on a t-shirt or anything underneath, and some work boots, and those were shorts overalls, right? So I had these work boots, anyways, and I bicycled like mad down to the hotel, and I rushed into the entrance. I've told you before, in the other videos, there's a door over here, there's a second door, and I just ran in like this, and the front desk was over here, and I ran to this other door over there, And I just ran. So all he saw of me, he never saw my face. He just saw these long hairs, these were all the workman shoes. And I just rushed to that door, and I go to grab it, but I can't get my balance as if I'm drunk. And I'm just trying to reach the door over and over, just trying to reach it and missing, and And I know that what's going on, meanwhile, is that he is at the front desk, and he's noticed this for sure. And he's got to be looking at me and going, "Oh God, what's this guy up to? What's this nonsense?" So so I just reach like that, and then one of the reaches, I just swivel around and face him. And as soon as he looks at my face, he recognizes it's me. And indeed, he was sitting there at the desk, the front desk, looking like this, looking at me. And as soon as he sees me, he goes, "Oh." And it was worth all of that effort at the time. Another memory I have before that of Juan is I bought a car, my first car, Blueya-Base. That was the name I gave it. It was blue. And I said, I went to see him, and I said, "Do you have a set of cheap speakers? I've got a radio in there, but there's no speakers. And I want to have these speakers in the back." And he goes, He goes, "Cheap speakers." And he starts thinking seriously about it. And the adjective, cheap, stuck in his head for some reason. And he thought about, what's the cheapest speakers I have? In his head, and he goes, I've got a set of cheap speakers. And off he goes, and he comes back, and I had seen these speakers before. It's a strange thing, they weren't mine, although I had that set. There was a recorder, it played vinyl records, and it was a turntable. Bought it from Sears. I'm thinking $50 in my head. It came with the turntable, a stand, and 2 speakers. And there was these 2 speakers. They were about this big, made of plastic with a black grill, and they had the turntable was on top, and the stand was made of plastic, a little double C shape like this. Speakers would slot in underneath, and you had the little turntable on top. And I remember owning it at some point. But anyway, it was so he pulls out this set of cheap speakers, and I put them in to my car, and they didn't fit on the side like this. They were too big. But when I put them sideways with the black grill on top, they fit in really good. But I'd never thought about the sun striking on the back, and they were made of plastic. And the very first day that I had them in there, the sun melted that plastic, and it melted into the speakers right away. And as soon as I started playing, the speakers were sort of plastic encrusted, and they distorted horribly. They sounded awful, and it led to that whole irritation stuff that I've been doing these videos about at the time. And so I had this irritation stereo in there where the music played badly, and I remember at some point blasting those cheap speakers, and the music was just distorting, bad, bad, bad. And whoever I was sitting in the back when the speakers were really loud in there ordered us to stop. And he got out of the car and he walked home. He would not sit in there. His cottage. He had built a cottage, and it was in the Gatineaus. And we had a cottage, but you kept going up the road, and at some point, quite a distance up the road, you would turn left and drive down even further down some dirt road, and eventually you could get to his cottage somewhere. And I had gone to visit him and see his cottage, and on the way up is this another adventure. There was I believe he was driving. That's right, he was driving. I was sitting as a passenger in the front seat, and it was late at night. It was winter, and he was driving along, and there's a long curved road like this in the dark, and just the headlights to light you along, and he's turning like this, and as he's doing that turn, suddenly, right in front of us, is two guys walking in the middle of the road. Now, I understand walking in the middle of the road in the concept that it is cleaned out by the trucks, so there's no snow and it's easier to walk. But in the middle of the night, it can be a bit of a shock, and the road was okay, but not if you did any sudden movements. And we were really turning, and as soon as he saw them, they were right there as he was getting into the turn. And he just did the slightest little, like this, and that was enough. And you could feel it, that the car had no traction, and it started sort of going like this towards this ditch. And his headlights lit up this ditch, which was just going down deep down there. You could see it was, I don't know, 25, 30 feet. And then there were trees, and I remember saying to him, "Not this way, Juan." And somehow he just eased that steering just onto the side, and somehow we took into the curve, but as we finished the turn, he started going off towards the other side, and there was no stopping it. He was going off the road. And the car literally sort of like went, and it sailed off the road. And it went, boom, and it landed in the ditch, which was maybe 4 feet, 5 feet deep. And it just the snow acted like a cotton blanket. It just went, whoomph. I remember that, just a whoomph. It was quite soft. And we sat there, and I had a toque, and for some reason the toque had come apart inside, and it was like two pieces. A piece had been pushed inside, and then you could pull that like this, so it was a double layer. But it had come inside, whatever held it together, and it had flopped out, and it looked like a banana. And I'm sitting in the car. He ran out. He ran out after those two guys, right, to find out what the hell they were doing. And I'm sitting in the car, and I'm trying to figure out what's going on with my toque. And, it doesn't. Anyway, I was totally befuddled. He met the two guys. They had run off to some other house because I seem to remember him screaming at them, "What the hell were you doing walking in the middle of the road?" Either way, we ended up coming back and walking up the road, and to our luck, middle of the night, there was a garage right up the hill, just right up the corner. And he came down with a tow truck. He pulled the car out, no damage to the car. The snow had covered everything, and off we went. And that was our crash adventure. Anyway, so that brings me to this potato and gun stuff. We had done another one at some point. He had an air pistol, and it didn't work. And I figured, well, it's probably got a little valve, and there's probably a piece of leather or something like that that's acting as a seal, and it's probably dried out, so probably pulling it out and putting some oil on it to fix it up. He says, I'll work on fixing that. So I sat at his table at his cottage, and he was sitting at his kitchen counter, which was right opposite me. I was at the table here, and I could see him. He was right there. And the counter, he was facing that wall, and he had a sort of a stool. And he was filling up bullets with gunpowder. And he was sitting here. He had this sort of a little thing that would weigh how much gunpowder he needed to put in. And then he had the thing here where he could stamp the bullet on top of the cartridge underneath. And he had a little funnel, to do the gunpowder. He had all of this set up here. And right over here he had his gunpowder, and right there he had his ashtray. So I'm sitting playing with the gun, the little leather thing there, and all of a sudden I see him dive. You're in a kitchen. You don't generally dive, particularly from a stool. And he does this sort of like this. And, inevitably it had happened. He was smoking a cigarette, and instead of flicking into the ashtray right next to the gunpowder ball, he flicks the cigarette in the gunpowder ball. So, and that's the occasion of him diving off his chair. He saw it coming, and I just look up, and right there, right in front of me, across, right there's that bowl with the gunpowder, and it happened to be sort of like an exact half bowl, or ball, if you think, just a half ball like this. And so all the flame was sort of shot up straight, and it was a column of flame, the size of the bowl, and it went with that type of noise, just a like this, and it went right up to the ceiling of the first floor, and it sort of splashed in this circle. It went, and then it came back down and was gone. And it was quite funny, surprising, and it left a singed circle on the ceiling. And so that was a lesson learned: never smoke and have an ashtray next to the gunpowder ball. Anyway, so along those occasions of playing with these guns, he talked about his desire to have a silencer on this 303 he had. And so it had always been this dream of his to have this sort of a silencer on it, how you could do that. And I remembered when he was mentioning this, it's just a memory, not my fault. I mean, it's something I saw on TV, a movie, and it was a Shaft movie. I think Richard Roundtree was in it as Shaft. And in the situation, Shaft is on the 30th floor of some apartment building. And he's looking, there's a guy who's taking off down there in the parking lot, and he doesn't want him to take off. So he grabs this gun, and he takes a potato, a 303 or 3030 or something like that, and he takes this potato, and he carves out a little hole inside the potato, going on one side and then on the other side. And he sticks it on the end of the rifle, and he opens the window, and he aims down with the scope, and he shoots out a tire on the guy's car. And when he shoots, the front of the potato breaks off half a piece of the front piece of the potato just goes like that, and it breaks off when he shoots. So and it muffles the sound to a like that. It's not very loud at all. So I said to him, well, there's your silencer. It's just a potato. It's a simple thing. But he was suspicious from the get-go, right? And he said, I don't know. He says, surely it can't be that simple. So he says, let's see if we can test it on something smaller. So he had a 22. So he takes this 22, and we put a potato on the end of the 22 and cut a little hole in there and everything. And I aimed it, and I shot it, and it goes, psh. But, then a 22, it sort of goes, psh, anyways. And it was hard to say if really it muffled it, but nothing untoward happened, nothing strange happened. So he ends up being convinced enough, and we take a potato, we stick it on the end of the 303, and he sets himself up. He's aiming at his target or whatever, and he pulls that trigger. The potato has been installed on the front, and he pulls that trigger, and as soon as he pulls it, boom! Just as loud as ever, and those things are loud. Anyway, it just boom! And then that's when I noticed that the potato, it's just gone, right? It's not there on the end of his gun, the badoom, it took away the attention from, I didn't see it break off or anything. And slowly, he's standing there, he's not really moving. Here's the train again, right on cue again. Anyway, he's turning towards me. And he's got this sort of like an acerbic look on his face. like, I should have known. And that's when I noticed that his face is shiny, right? And then I also noticed that the gun is shiny. And his clothes are shiny. And the picnic table is shiny. And in fact, there's sort of like a ball around him that's all sort of shiny white. And of course, the potato had pulverized when the bullet had gone through it. Just pulverized. It was gone. It was everywhere. It was this potato meat covered everything. His face, his hair, his gun, all the stuff. Anyways, and he wasn't laughing, but that's okay. I was. I found it hilarious. He should have listened to me. What did he think? It's a fucking movie. They don't say the truth in movies, do they? But anyways, I proved that it was a lie, at least. Anyway, so that was my story with Juan and about the potato silencer. And thanks for listening to me and listening to my memories about the guy. And the train's here, so it's time to go. See you next memory.